My entire life, I believed war was the ultimate destroyer of a human civilization. I thought it was the fatal glitch in our nature that would eventually wipe us all out. But I was wrong, and you are too. If you look closely at the darkest, bloodiest parts of human history, you will find a terrifying paradox. The worst, most destructive thing humans have ever invented is the only reason we are experiencing peace today. To prove to you and explain why World War III is likely already dead, we have to go back to the exact moment it almost started. On October 27, 1962, deep underwater in the Caribbean Sea, inside a sweltering Soviet submarine known as the B-59, three men hold your life in their hands. Above them, the US Navy was dropping practice depth charts, trying to force them to the surface, but down in the suffocating darkness entirely cut off from Moscow. The Soviet crew was convinced World War III had already begun. They were armed with a 10-kiloton nuclear torpedo, and their protocol was terrifyingly simple. To launch it, all three senior officers had to agree unanimously. If they pressed that button, America would retaliate instantly. The world would catch fire. Human civilization would end, and it would be as none of this ever existed. Two out of three officers decided it was time. They voted to launch. The end of the world was 1 year away, but the third officer, Vasily Arkhipov, refused. He stood his ground against his commanders. Because of his single veto, the torpedo stayed in its tube. The submarine surfaced peacefully and the world kept spinning. Arkhipov saved the world by stopping a war. But if we zoom out and look at the grand timeline of human history, we are faced with a dark, uncomfortable paradox. What if the war itself is the very reason we are alive, to enjoy peace today? Sounds absurd. We possess the most apocalyptic weapons in human history. The US and Russia alone sit on roughly 11,000 nuclear warheads, thousands of times the total explosive power of all World War II. We have the absolute capability to annihilate ourselves. So why haven't we? In the 20th century, over 150 million people died in conflicts. It's easy to look at that and think humanity is doomed. But let's look at the actual math. In ancient primitive societies, violence cost about 15% of all human deaths. By 20th century, despite two world wars, that number dropped to 5%. Today, death by human violence is less than 1%. In fact, you are statistically far more likely to be killed by the sugar in your dessert or by heart disease than by a bullet. Stanford historian Ian Morris proposed a highly counterintuitive theory. Violence has slowly diminished over the centuries because of war. For thousands of years, humanity lived in a constant state of tribal warfare. You are always on standby. At any moment, the neighboring tribe could slaughter you and take your land. But when tribes fought, the winner observed the loser. Two societies became one. Then that larger society conquered another, and another. Over 3,000 years, humanity consolidated from roughly 80,000 fractured, warring factions into the 200 or so organized countries we have today. Statistically, fewer societies mean fewer borders to fight over. As these empires grew, the victorious leaders faced a problem. You can't rule millions of people if they are constantly killing each other. So, the leaders created a government, and does something crucial. He monopolizes the violence. In the ancient jungle, anyone could kill you for an apple, but in an empire, only the state has the right to use force. It is not because the ruler is purely benevolent, it's because dead citizens can't pay taxes. The ruler wants you to wake up, drink your coffee, go to work, and fuel the economy. Because of this forced stability, a division of labor emerged. We specialized, we traded, we grow rich. But the nature of wealth also changed. In the past, the economy was based on physical matter. If you had a gold mine, I would bring an army and take it. Even in the late 90s, Countries fought over physical resources like coltan in the Congo, but today's global superpowers operate in a knowledge economy. What good would it do for a rival nation to drop bombs on Silicon Valley? You can't plunder a software algorithm. You can't steal invention with a tank. To profit from a knowledge economy, you don't conquer your rivals, you do business with them. A trade and economic cooperation generate billions of dollars, more than war ever could. War is a horrific, destructive force, but historically it was the brutal mechanism that forced humanity to merge, organize, and eventually outgrow the need for war itself. We no longer live in the jungle. We built a war where it's more profitable to share the apple than kill for it. And as long as we remember that, the button stays unpressed. Vasily Arkhipov saved human civilization by refusing to press a button. Now it's your turn to be a hero by pressing the like and subscribe buttons below. You might not save the world, but you will save your front row seat for the next video we drop. And honestly, I think that's just as heroic. Humanity's drive for conflict isn't just about ancient empires or Cold War paranoia. The psychological roots of war actually started forming in our brains when we are just 6 months old. If you want to know how that dark psychology practically guarantee you would become the villain if you got superpowers, click the video on your screen right now. I want to hear your thoughts on this paradox in the comment section. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.